Matt Sitter here, CEO of AFN and Partner at Sixth Wing. One of our fundamental beliefs is that change is where opportunity happens, and the best way to find opportunity in change is a network that is diverse in experience, expertise, and perspective. With our Fireside Chats, we pull together a ton of different perspectives. Today, we've got Lettie Dalton with us. She's Chief Delivery Officer at Adeption. She's a leadership facilitator and coach who works with organizations to help leaders build the habits, mindsets, and practices needed for meaningful growth. She brings a lot of experience in leadership development, human behavior, and learning experiences that turn reflection into action. And she has spent a lot of time thinking about leadership development through the lens of what's going on with the impact that AI is having on things. And so if we think about what's going on in the world today, our leaders have to lead through profound change that is led by adoption of a technological tool. So that is oversimplifying by quite a bit. There's a lot going on around here. But Lettie, I'm really looking forward to speaking today.
Me too, Matt. Thanks for that intro.
So, one of the things that we've had a tendency to lean in on as at Sixth Wing, we've been thinking about what AI means is on the human-centered aspect of how do we become more human with respect to what AI is pushing at us. When we think about human-led AI, what does that mean to you through the lens of leadership development?
It's a great question. And I think if I rewind a little bit, I think over the years, I've worked in leadership development for probably 15 plus years now, and lots of trends. I'm sure we can all reminisce on trends and fads and things that have come and gone. I think AI and the kind of new era that we're moving into and learning about currently is probably the thing that's created the biggest shift, not just in development and leadership development, but across the board. I think when we talk about human-led AI, one thing that hasn't changed, although AI has changed a lot about the way that we work, leadership is still fundamentally human. To be able to lead requires human experiences. And AI, if it's human-led, can support us to amplify those. The opposite being trying to learn from technology. So if we're trying to get our leadership development through learning from technology, and I could share some examples as we go through of this, but it's very different and it's very tempting to try to do that, to try to take shortcuts. But the reality is that there are no shortcuts to meaningful human or leadership development. And so how do we leverage AI to really highlight and help us to focus in on and reflect on and connect with those things that we're learning? A story that kind of comes to mind for me is I was coaching a leader recently. She was a senior leader at a tech company. And one of the things that she described in reflection in coaching was sitting with a team member who'd recently suffered a bereavement. So they suffered a loss of a close family member. And this team member was struggling in their work to be present and to focus. And she was describing, so this leader that I was coaching was describing how she became emotional listening to him reflect. She was experiencing those human emotions of compassion and sadness and reflecting on her own experiences of loss. So she was kind of making sense of it. She felt compelled to support him. She was building connection. These moments, these things that happen moment to moment, that is what leadership development is all about. That's how we develop. So utilizing AI to help us to highlight that, to help us to really hone in on those moments and those experiences. What do they mean? How can we share them with others? How do we build on those? For me, that's the essence of what we're talking about when we talk about humans leading AI versus learning from AI.
Okay. Well, I mean, one of the things that a conversation I had recently was thinking about credibility that goes along with AI. So, if we say, what you're doing in terms of connecting, you're leading through it, and there's credibility that can come along with that connection that can give you opportunities to do more. When we see leaders or pretty much anyone um, taking what they've learned from AI and just pushing it out to the world word for word, there's certain signals that folks are picking up on, like super long dashes, or it's not this, but that, like some of the language that goes around it. And that diminishes credibility substantially. So when we think about where some of the danger is for leaders around, like, we got this great tool, you can get all sorts of information. You can probably do a first pass on analysis. Where's some of the danger sit for leaders with respect to leading through when they've got this great technological tool?
I think it's a really good question, and I think we are seeing it more and more. It's certainly popping up as challenges that leaders are facing more and more. In fact, I was reading a book recently, Ethan Mollick book, I think it's called What's in It for Me, and he was talking about they'd split. It was 2023. There was 500 or 800 management consultants, and they split them into two groups. One group could use AI, one group was human only. The group that could use AI, faster, higher quality, actually quite creative. But when it came to critical thinking and accuracy,
Mm-hmm.
65% compared to the 85% of the human group. I think what we're doing quite often is inadvertently taking shortcuts that in the short term may help us feel smarter and quicker, and in the long run are perhaps robbing us of our own opportunities to
Okay.
develop.
Yeah. I mean, so many facts are flowing at us that can influence our ability to actually discern things.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the more we're leveraging it, it's a bit like, that you can liken it to for like using a GPS. I'm renowned for how incredibly bad I am at my sense of direction, ridiculously bad. But I do sometimes wonder, I mean, my ability to get lost is outstanding, but I do sometimes wonder whether my dependence on Google Maps or GPS, from an
Yeah.
early age actually has what would that look like now if I hadn't lent on it as hard as I did? And what does it look like for leadership development if we continue to, or if we lean on AI too heavily to do some of the heavy lifting, that messy work that is innately part of what develops us as humans?
So when we think about some the leadership insights that organizations are gaining, um, AI, we'll put AI to one side for right now. What are some of the things that organizations are failing to learn about their organizations from that leadership insight perspective right now?
Um, I think what's possible to learn now, as opposed to what used to be possible to learn,
Okay.
has changed significantly. When I think about leadership development, I think about, years ago, how did we used to capture the data? How do we used to understand where people are at, what their needs are, the direction we need to take in terms of our strategy, our organizational development, our leadership development? We had various tools that we have now, but also, I know you said AI aside, but I think AI has opened up a whole world of new possibilities in terms of what can be captured. Whether it
Okay.
is being captured and utilized, I don't know. But I wonder, what I've started seeing more now, and you may have as well, is like disclaimers on work, not created by AI. Or it's
Yeah.
almost like it reminds me of, kids at school that are showing their messy workings out in a maths test. I think we're starting to, or certainly with clients, I'm starting to see a shift in some instances coming out of the other side of putting AI on a pedestal and going, who's got the best tech knowledge, who can utilize AI, who's leveraging AI, who's experimenting the most with AI, to going, actually show me the messy workings out. What did you learn along the way? I think we're starting to see the value in that more. I hope we are, anyway.
Okay. So how should we be showing that messiness? Because the temptation is there for AI to give us that shortcut and to have a black box. It's just like, here's the end product. But making the sausage is an important part of people getting to a better solution. So how do we lead in such a way that we're helping folks understand that?
And it's tricky, right? Because I think it's a bit like asking somebody to continually make the choice to choose broccoli over chocolate cake.
Yeah.
Like I think it's so how do you how do you do that? Um, I think in helping people to understand one of the things that I kind of, and I think it was some work with Google where this kind of came out as a theme, is that there's a lot that we don't know in terms of, we predict, but we don't know in terms of what the future of work looks like. But one thing that we can be, I think, fairly certain of is that learning to learn is going to be one of the most important skills that we can have, if not
Hmm.
the most
Hmm.
important skill that we can have. I think once we've got an understanding of that and, choosing the broccoli, why do we choose broccoli over carrot cake? Or carrot cake's my favorite, or chocolate cake, or whatever your favorite cake is. We do it because we know it's good for us. We know we're going to be healthier in the long run. We understand, nutritionally what's required. I think the more we can understand about ourselves, um, and thinking about our own kind of pathway in life, the better equipped we are to make the choices that are going to serve us best moving forward. And from a leadership point of view, the better you can support others to make those choices as well. But it is
Hmm.
a choice. It is a choice. And I think there's only so much that you can um police, or I think we have to equip people to first of all understand why learning is so important and such a crucial skill, and then make sure that we're leveraging AI to help them to learn
Well,
versus
and I
giving
think,
the answers. But it's tempting. It's really tempting.
and we got a whole other set of problems that are coming our way for for kids who are going through the educational system right now. They've got AI as a tool that's helping them do all sorts of tasks much more quickly, but that learning to learn thing may not be happening to the same degree, and that will fall on the organizations that they work for to help them develop that skill.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the other thing that we're potentially seeing is, understandably, but the avoidance of what I call the groan zone. I don't think I coined that term, but I love it. The groan zone being that that time, that kind of sticky, roll your sleeves up time of like, this is hard. I don't really want to do it. I'm
Hmm.
uncomfortable. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know the answer. And I know I've got to grit my teeth and get on with it. That inherently, for me, I often say that that's an indication in itself. Being in that moment is an indication that you are developing, that you are growing, that you are learning,
Yeah.
and you'll come out the other side of it. And most of the time when we talk to leaders about, what was a meaningful development experience, it involved something hard. It involved getting on with it, getting through it, getting it done. If we're taking that away as an opportunity, again, it's like,
Yeah.
how do we ensure that we all recognize the value of that? How do we hold that to a higher value? Like going to the gym, right?
Yeah.
Again, a lot of people don't go to the gym because they genuinely would rather be there than anywhere else. A lot of the time they do it because they recognize the value in it.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about pace with respect, and there's a few elements of pace around this. So, I think that the amount that we're hearing in the media about AI and like, oh, the latest model came out and it's not even being allowed to be touched by a bunch of people because we're so worried about its capabilities right now. So that's one element of pace. Technology is moving fast. Also, when we're thinking about pace with respect to the leaders that are out there and what's being demanded of them, I think that organizations are always asking for more faster. And this stands in contrast to, when we're saying, hey, sometimes you got to actually work through things. And so in any individual circumstance, the answer that AI is going to provide is going to be the most efficient one, right? But we're saying, hey, how we've got to be able to enable that discernment, and so that may slow things down in favor of a better solution. When we're thinking about leaders dealing with that pace, um, what are ways that they can be thinking about that pace and being able to talk to the rest of their organization about it in such a way that, hey, it's not just about that solution that you're getting with the immediate sugar high, but that we're getting something bigger, longer term. And how do we buy them that space?
Yeah. And I think it does, there's a sense of, it's almost like we have to go against our innate wiring here because our innate wiring is find the easy way,
Mhm.
do it as quickly as possible, and if possible, do it faster than others are doing
Yeah,
it. So what we're asking of people, and this is the theme here, it seems. What we're asking of people is to go against that wiring. I think how it shows up in things like leadership development, I mean, we often talk explicitly about going slow to go fast. And I think once people see in it and feel that, a great example, something really simple that we can all relate to would be like connecting at the beginning of a meeting. So, rather than just getting in and getting it
yeah,
done, you can get so much further if you spend 10 minutes connecting at a human level, talking about how you're feeling or what's going on for you. It's slow and it may feel a bit like, can we just get on with this and can we just get to it? But actually, the value of those moments can pay off in spades in terms of the rest of the time that you've got together being really efficient and really fast and going really smoothly and working well. So I think there is that go slow to go fast. I do get a sense at the moment that we're running, when I say we, but in the world, we're running quite fast.
yeah,
My question is to where? And there's this piece around purpose, right? I think a lot of it as leaders, we can say, you know, keep asking, I want to do this faster so that what, so
right.
that we can do more, so that what? And
Yeah,
I think it's just that taking that moment of consciousness, stepping back and out of the kind of hamster wheel and really reflecting on what's the big picture here and where are we trying to get to? Because I think if we can do that, and we talk a lot about, sort of different mindsets and being able to take a step back, look at the bigger picture, that means that we can support others to do the same. Because of course, it's systemic. If my leader's running, I'm running. If my team see me running, they're
uh
running. Suddenly we're all running. It's like I don't know if you know, but we have a thing about queuing here in England. If we see a queue, we get in it. And I think it's like if you see someone running, you think,
yeah,
well, this must be we got to go somewhere quick, so I'd better run. I mean, there's so many social experiments around this as well, right? Where we just do what others are doing. And I wonder whether there's some of that because I think taking a moment to ask the why question, it could
yeah,
be really powerful there as well.
yeah. Well, I mean, one of my favorite phrases that I got from a guy I used to work with, he said, "Movement is the illusion of progress," right? And so, it's very easy to mistake one for the other, for sure.
Yeah. I think the other thing I'm thinking about in terms of pace, one of the topics that I've seen kind of become more relevant, and more talked about over the last sort of 18, 24 months is Ron Heifetz's work, from adaptive and technical leadership and adaptive
Hmm.
adaptive and technical challenges. I think one of the ways that we can help ourselves to recognize, is this a time to go fast or is this a time to pause? What's going to be the best course of action
Yeah, okay.
for the thing that I'm trying to achieve? So number one, what am I trying to achieve? And then number two, it might be that going fast is the best course of action because it might be, a technical challenge, something that's been solved before, something we do have the expertise
Yep,
for, something that's
yep,
perfectly placed, for example, for AI. The answer's there. Ask the question, get the answer,
yep.
implement it. But the challenge is when it comes to leadership development, but when it comes to challenges leaders are facing, a lot of the time, the reason they're hard is because they're adaptive challenges. Adaptive challenges being the ones that we don't know what we don't know. We haven't actually solved it
Right.
yet. So it's
Right.
not possible to ask. AI might come up with some great ideas, but the reality is it's not technology that's going to come up with an idea that's suddenly going to solve the problem. It's people coming together, connecting together, changing together,
Right.
those lived experiences that we talked about at the beginning. That's the thing. And those are slower than finding an answer. But the thing is that, again, we're going to approach challenges like they're technical because it's easier. And we're going to do it again and again and again, and we're going to keep having the same
Right.
problem
Right.
until we recognize what challenges we just don't have the answers for yet. And when we do that, I think understanding that and then having the focus of, I think this might be an adaptive challenge. I think this might be something that actually, in order to overcome it, we need to do something differently. We may need to sacrifice something. We need to bring people along on this journey. I can't
Yeah.
do it alone. I think when we can do that, it almost, it gives us that sort of signal we're gonna have to slow down.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you were making me think about, I always get the pronunciation of this wrong. I think it's Cunefin framework, but
Mhm.
it's like, a complex problem versus a simple problem. Simple problem, like best practice you can resolve that. And so probably perfect to go to AI on saying like, hey, how would you do this? You're going to get a really good answer. When we're thinking about those complex problems where it's not clear exactly what's going on, you need some sort of emergent adaptive solution against it. So that's a great way, I think, for our leaders to think about like, hey, all right, does this require that adaptive solution versus not?
Yeah. And in terms of what we can do, I'm just thinking about that in terms of how do we like the other way that AI can really help with this. A great example is we run kind of open enrollment programs with Salesforce. They're really interested in
Okay.
understanding um, to what degree are their leaders approaching challenges as technical, adaptive, what's working, what isn't. So in being able to get them to share their thinking, get them to capture their reflections and insights, they're able to learn directly from each other, which is one of the things that we know works in terms of like, it's absolute gold. It's content and information is everywhere, right? But we can learn from each other, share with each other, sense make together.
Yeah.
They can do that. But also then what you've got is a data set across the organization of that gives us a view of what's working, what isn't, where are our leaders' mindsets currently at, what's going to be helpful, like what's the next step or the next iteration that we need to make in terms of what we're offering. That awareness, I think you asked before around, what are we missing? I think it's one of the things that we haven't been able necessarily to capture that type of data before. And now we can. It means that we can be more focused with what we're offering. We can make sure that people's attention is in the right place because information is no longer our biggest or
Not a
most
hurdle.
desirable
Yeah.
currency. But
Yeah.
what is, I think, is attention units. I heard uh, Otto Sharma. He's a senior lecturer at MIT, and he's spellbinding. And I heard him something that stuck with me from last year. And he said, if you throw a stick for a dog, and I think it's just such a great visual. I love it. Anyway, you throw a stick for a dog, the dog will chase the stick and bring it back. Doesn't matter how many times you throw it, it will just keep chasing the stick and keep bringing it back.
Yeah.
If you throw a stick for a lion, the lion will look to the source immediately,
Mm.
to the source of the stick. And I kind of feel like I love that because I think with tech, with AI, with all of these things, with where we put our attention, how can we be more like the
Mhm.
lion? How can we put our attention where it needs to be versus all over the place? It goes back to your thing of pace as well. What sticks are we running after? Where are we going to? And where
Right.
should we be looking? What matters most? Where does our attention need to be?
So with this framing in mind, what are some of the responsible experiments with respect to AI that leaders should be running right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, I think there was I'm trying to remember where I read this recently. An experimentation mindset. So I think it was Adam Grant's latest book. He talks about I think it's like Silicon Valley tech startups. This is where I need my research written down, but because it's kind of stuck in my mind. Where people are approaching um, their sort of strategy and planning as a sort of experiment to test and iterate is where they're getting the best results. So, in terms of revenue, customer retention, and it made me think it's completely in line with what we're seeing here because we don't know what the end goal looks like right now in many ways. There's so many unknowns. I think when it comes to experimenting, there's two things that come to mind. Number one is behave like a scientist, treat it as an experiment. We don't know what we don't know, but we can test and iterate. So I think small steps and
Hmm.
iterations, continually testing and learning, but also experimenting and iterating in the area of learning to learn, of,
Okay.
doubling down on those things that help us to develop versus cutting corners. I think one really good question is, something along the lines of if I'm going to take this choice, what learning might I be missing out on? What might I be sacrificing here? It
Hmm.
might be quick, it might be easy, it might, give me 2 hours to do something else because it would have been a 3-hour job. But actually, what am I missing out on? Because I think we're almost like building a deficit there to the point we talked about earlier. And am I willing to make that sacrifice? So I
Yeah.
think, just testing some of when we think of an experiment, is it going to help us in the long run? Is it the chocolate cake or is it the broccoli? And also, am I taking a kind of iterative mindset to what I'm doing?
So I think, I mean, just making sure that we're asking ourselves those questions alone, I think is pretty important. Um, so I do think that leadership development is a hopeful endeavor that, we think that there's good that comes out of the way that leaders lead. When we're thinking about AI's impact on organizations and on leadership and leadership development, what about AI makes you hopeful that we're actually heading on a good path? Where do you where do you feel good?
I I I feel the sense that I get and my hope is that fundamentally, I mean, if we talk really big picture, I think humans want to be good humans. And I think leaders want to create great humans and they want to be good humans themselves. Blanket, that's my belief. And I think if we keep that in mind and we use AI to help us get there faster, if we want to get
Yeah.
somewhere quick, I think that's where we go quickly. And I think that there's an appetite for that because I believe that is true. And so having the right conversations, asking the right questions, raising awareness, I think AI, can be phenomenally helpful. And some of what we've seen in terms of transformational experiences and how quickly they can come about, we can, for example, create learning
Yeah.
cycles quicker than we have before. In the past, it's been much easier to create silos of knowledge. We often say, what works doesn't scale and what scales doesn't work. In terms of, development interventions, that's always been true. Things like coaching and access to cohort learning and shared wisdom. If I've got someone in my organization who's been through, who's been there for 20 years and has solved all the problems that I'm currently dealing with, how do I access what they know? In
Right.
the past, it would have been chance, luck, a huge investment. But
For
now,
sure.
if I can leverage AI and I can do that, it's like what gives me hope is the idea that we can perhaps not bypass the hard stuff, but really focus on it more. I wonder whether the more deeply embedded we are with AI, the more deeply human we need to be with our leadership, and maybe AI is the thing that can really help us with that.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay, so one more question for you, and then we'll open it up for other folks to ask things. We, thinking about pace, It's crazy to consider that the year is already halfway over, pretty much. What are you looking forward to in the rest of the year?
I mean, it's a big question
Yeah,
in
and
general.
don't feel like you got to go super deep on this. It's just like, hey, what's one of the things that you're like, hey, I'm really looking forward to, seeing how X turns out.
Um, it's a great question. What am I really looking forward to? I think that we talked about experiments earlier. Um,
Mhm.
I kind of want to think of something specific, and I don't have something specific in mind. Maybe it'll come to me. But there is a lot of and again, what gives me hope? There's a lot of experimentation going on right now. The possibilities of what we can do have never been. There's never been
Yeah.
more possibilities. So what I'm really kind of excited about is some of those experiments. When we partner when we work with organizations and kind of testing and learning and doing that together, I think there's more of that than I've ever seen. It's not just a here it is, this is what it is, this is what it looks like.
Right.
It's a
Right.
what's possible. What do you need? How do you know what you need? And so the creativity I'm excited about, the outcome of some of those experiments, how quickly we can learn and iterate.
Yeah.
My guess is May now. My guess is that by December, even if we had this same conversation again, some of the things, some of the ways in which we're supporting leadership development are going to have changed significantly in those next 6 months. I'm really looking forward to that.
Great. All right. We will open it up to questions now. So feel free to put a question in chat or to come up directly on the screen.
Yeah, Matt, Lettie, I have first off, thank you. This was amazing. I have a page full of quotes and, and comments that I didn't expect to have. But I do have a question, and it deals with leadership on performance goals. Because I'm seeing this a lot with organizations who've set the goal to be an AI-enabled organization by the end of whatever. And I'm wondering, in terms of leadership, when will we get to the point, or will we get to the point that AI is enough? In terms of, I can take the performance goals I had set that I was given, I can throw them in my AI tool. They can scan through all my files and see what I've done that aligns to those performance goals. And they can give that all back to my supervisor without me doing very much at all. I don't I don't know that we're anywhere close to that, but I'm just wondering, is that where we're going? Is that enough? Just some thoughts I had as I was listening to the conversation this morning. Thank you.
I love that question. You want me to go, Matt, or have you got
No, go ahead.
um, so a couple of things come to mind. Number one, I think actually wouldn't, on the one hand, I think wouldn't that be amazing? Um, and on the other hand, I go to the question I asked earlier, what's the cost? What's the cost of that? What are we missing out on? What are we bypassing? What sort of experience deficit are we building up? If that's where we want to get to, what do we need to do alongside that to make sure that we're still learning and developing and growing? Because what you just described, although it sounds, I can see that being phenomenal. And actually, I think to some extent, I think about our Adeption platform and what you can do there. Like, it's not a million miles away in terms of what's possible. Is it what we want? Um, what's the cost of that? I think there's a few things that kind of come up for me. Um, yeah, so I'm kind of a bit polarized. On the one hand, I think it sounds really exciting, and on the other hand, I'm kind of, I would say that there's a lot of questions to ask around what we'd be missing by almost automating, especially the human aspects, those lived experience aspects of that.
I might, I'm gonna do a, 30-degree shift on the question. And Lettie, I'm interested in your opinion here because the premise on this was that a bunch of organizations are saying we have to be an AI enabled organization. And, when I first started working was when, the internet was the key thing. Everyone had to, what are we doing with the internet? We've got to have an internet strategy here. And there was a lot of people who were doing a number of things relative because it had the word .com in it or the word internet in it. And Lettie, what do you think about organizations having a goal of being an AI enabled organization? Like what if you can only have 3 or 5 organizational goals that you're talking about, and this is one of them, is this the correct premise for organizations to be working under?
I mean, I think it's a really thought-provoking question. My first thought, honestly, is what do we mean? Again, it's
Yeah.
like that, where are we running to? Because I don't know that I inherently think it's a good or bad thing, but what does that mean and why? And I think it could be, depending. There's so many variables
Yeah.
in my mind. This is kind of where I go to with it. Because we also talk about kind of, agentic organizations and having, agents run a significant portion of, thinking and decision making and other
Yeah.
things. And I think that there's huge value in that. And it can free up a huge amount of time. And those attention units that I was talking about
Yep.
before with that with the dog and the lion story. For so that is my question, so that I've got more time, so that I can in order
Yep.
to what's, and I think it comes back probably for me to that question of earlier. I don't know that I inherently personally think that it's a good or a bad thing. I think it really depends on the in order to question mark
Right.
for me.
Right. And I think that that's the danger here is that there's a lot of room for individuals to interpret. Oh, we want to be an AI enabled organization. All right. People are interpreting that a ton of different ways. And it's almost like we need a couple bullets is like, what are we trying to get better at with this? If it's like, all right, all the road tasks that are out there, we want to make sure that there's AI enablement beyond that. Okay.
Yeah.
Behind that 100%. Or we've got a ton of data that exists within our organization. How are we making sure that we can access it or analyze it? Okay, I can get behind that. But like you have to, coming up with an agent for the sake of having an agent isn't necessarily the right path. You need to, and I think this is a leadership responsibility. We've got to be able to describe that.
Yeah, and I mean, so one of the things that we've started doing, and this is why I was talking, you asked me what I was excited about for this year, is like experimenting with what does the future look like? What are different iterations of the future, and what leadership does it take to get us there? I think shifting people out of the mindset of now and then what's possible next
Mm-hmm.
can sometimes be really helpful. And I say that because the other thing that I see sometimes that I think we kind of get stuck with is saying we want to be AI enabled is similar to saying, for example, we want to be great at change. We want to be really agile.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, sure, and we can have all of the banners and the logos and the frameworks and everything else, but again, it's a bit like learning from technology. Me looking at a poster that says we're an agile organization doesn't fundamentally change whether or not I am, whether or not my team is, whether or not the
Yeah.
culture is.
Yeah.
That is different work. And so I think we've got to look at the bigger picture and we've got to look at all the pieces. I don't think that you can just say independently AI enabled or not. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe you can, but is it useful to? I don't know.
Agree 100%. Any other questions sitting out there?
More a comment. I love the analogy about the broccoli and the cake, except for me, it's broccoli and potato chips. But but I go through that question almost daily because for the same reasons, right? I really want to be able to set aside time to think through more complex problems. I want to listen to podcasts. I want to read books so that I'm growing. Even participating in like our chief of staff office hours and learning from my peers. AI can't do that for me. So in order for me to find that time, I choose the potato chips for, consolidating notes, writing emails. And then I start to feel guilty, just like if I were on a diet, like, am I softening those skills? Because now I've handed it over. I used to be I think a good communicator, with the written word. Am I losing that skill because I no longer am focusing on it? So I guess it's more of a comment than a question, but it does go through my mind pretty much on a daily basis. It's interesting.
It's really interesting. I think it's a great comment. And I think it's a really relatable comment as well. I mean, personally for me, but also from, my observation and internally as well, like I think, like I said, what I see now, what we've started to do, but I see it elsewhere is a tag not generated by AI. And genuinely for me nowadays, I'm more interested sometimes in reading something that's got that tag on it than or you start to read it and you kind of have that internal eye roll moment of, oh, I don't know if anyone's ever read this.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. No, I think that's fascinating is there's like all sorts of content that's coming out that no one's actually spending time reading.
Yeah.
And then when you talk about, that we're an AI enabled company, it's like, okay, to what extent though? Right? So is it okay that, oh, Betsy wrote all that and it's all AI generated and that's okay because we've said that's a direction we're going to go? But is it really okay because has she put her thought and experience and knowledge and peer learning and all of that into, that document or that piece or whatever it was generated? I just think I do that circle all day long.
Yeah. And I think what comes up for me is again, I think I go back to, the purpose and pace. We can go fast if we know where we're going and we're going in the direction that we've predetermined. If we're just going fast because everyone else is going fast, we maybe need to question that. But once we have got our purpose and once we're really clear on that, the so what, the what are we trying to achieve here? What does good look like? I think that helps leaders to be more discretionary about this is moving us towards our purpose and I'm going to make this choice because of that, or it's not. And this is what, I was talking earlier about learning to learn. For me, that should be on the table for every person, human leader, it should be there as one of the skills that we are all bought into. A bit like having a healthy diet and lifestyle, but there's going to be other things as well, other choices that we need to make based on, where we're going, our strategy, our purpose. So I think the more clear we can be on those things and the more aligned we can be on those things, the easier it is to be confident in some of those choices that we're making. Because on the other hand, what we don't want to do is AI is absolutely phenomenal for, faster is often good, more productive is often good. It's not that it's just making sure that we're making the right choices for the right reason. So I think that can sometimes help, almost like a compass, is it taking me in the right direction?
Yeah, excellent point. Thank you.
The learning to learn and the fact that you're saying like, hey, this is on all of us to continue to learn how to learn. My joke is always, for someone who is not there, is that they're a finished product. And the implication is like, hey, there's not a lot else to be able to do there.
Yeah. And I think
any other questions? Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Lettie.
I was just going to say with leadership development, it's something that we often, talk about is how many great leaders, if you think of somebody that who you think is a phenomenal leader, did they wake up today and go, I'm done. I did it. Yeah. I am great at leadership. Yeah. Never mind. I don't need to do anything else. Yeah. It doesn't, it's continuous. Unfortunately, it's something that we've got to continue.
Yeah. But I mean, it's what keeps us going, right? So, any other questions? Okay. Well, Lettie, amazing conversation. Thank you for bringing your insights to us. And this conversation is by no means over as well. Turns out we're going to learn a lot more in the future. So thanks a ton for your time. Look forward to chatting with you again soon.
Thanks so much, Matt. It's been a joy, and I always learn from these types of conversations. And thanks for the questions as well.